We wanted the territory to belong to us all. Now, all we had to do was to keep him, without incident, until we succeeded in getting permission to return him to Africa. Or we failed. If that happened, life over the next few years was going to be very complicated.
Ace and John had come a long way from Australia, but perhaps it was an even bigger step from Chelsea. They had given up their jobs in the furniture shop and would now live in the children's playhouse. There they could keep an eye on things, and Christian wouldn't feel too lonely.
Ace's relationship with Christian had a unique expression to it. His greeting, in human terms, unmistakably showed his love. But welcomes of various kinds were given to everyone, including me. He was so good-natured that I, who knew him least well, was able to go in with a bone and to feed him by hand, which I'd hesitate to do with some dogs that I've known much better. As Christian was systematically chewing up the garden, our plans were progressing slowly. The perfect spring imperceptibly grew into a hot summer. We spent many afternoons in Christian's company. We'd heard from Africa. After much debate, we'd received agreement in principle from the Kenyan government. Christian could go back, but only on condition that the project would be completed in 2 years, and, more important, that a suitable area could be found. That was the difficulty. That was the snag. George Adamson in Africa, at this moment, was examining each possibility by plane and then by Land Rover, often without even a track to follow, and with nothing on the map to indicate the desperate nature of the country.
Christian's intended stay of a few weeks turned into 4 months before, at last, we had definite news. His future was decided. An area in the north had been found and approved. George added gravely that living conditions there would be very tough. He meant, of course, the lions. Suddenly, there was no time to be lost. East African Airways needed his exact weight. Christian cooperated, as best he could. But weighing a lion isn't all that easy.
Yes. That's higher. That's it. Yes.
He had grown considerably and was now quite a handful. At 165 pounds, he'd gained 45 pounds since he arrived at our cottage. The crate for his transportation had arrived. The flight from London to Nairobi would be 10 hours, 5,000 miles. Christian would have to accept his confinement. Somehow, he must not resist or resent it. That could only cause damage to himself and his relationship with us. For the time being, that must be preserved. We would need all the trust that had been established if we were to be of any use in helping him to adapt to a natural life in Africa. We began with only 1 minute at first. By increasing the length of time gradually each day, we worked up to almost an hour. As he was always let out before he became resentful, was made a great fuss of, he learned to accept this temporary loss of liberty. It became a sort of game, which I think he quite enjoyed.
If it is possible, we were both happy and sad the day Christian was to leave his home, our home, forever. Experts on moving animals had recommended a mild tranquilizer, which they had carefully calculated on duration of flight and weight of animal, concealed in meat, enough only to dull the reactions, the minimum amount for an uneventful flight. And that was what we all hoped for.
We arrived at Nairobi airport at dawn. I somehow felt certain George Adamson was there, somewhere. George, the great authority on lions, would never allow Christian to arrive without being there. Any lion to George is at once a friend, to be met and understood. George knew that after a flight of 5,000 miles, even in a heated and pressurized hold, Christian would need time to recover, to find his feet. We were most relieved to find that Christian had apparently taken the journey well, but we were impatient to get his crate unloaded, just to make sure. The animal holding bay at Nairobi was full of strange, unrecognizable scents. The sounds were all different too. There had been a sudden, incomprehensible change of environment and atmosphere. He seemed bemused, curious too. Lions are always curious. So were the people watching. To them, no doubt, it appeared the height of insanity to bring a lion to Africa.
Come on. That's it.
The long journey ahead, I knew, would not be comfortable. With Christian aboard, it could not be fast. In the latter stages, I reckon we'd be in four-wheel drive most of the time. Lucky to average 10 miles an hour. Up country, far from Nairobi, Terence Adamson, George's brother, a man who knows Kenya like the back of his hand, had slowly been making his way northeast. He had recruited a labor force some 5 weeks before.